Hey folks, Craig Danger, vinyl record player. Oh, back, 1976. We got the underrated, the must-haves. Like I say, we're not going to be doing this for many other years. Collection's running a little tight to the bone here. But you know what? I do have five, I think, definitely unheralded, but there's definitely a couple super classics in here. So you know what? Make as if a flight attendant is coming to get you, and please, buckle up. And so we're back, talking about 1976. I'm just going to cut right out in and start talking about, a little bit of a grail, friends. Little bit of a grail. How about Seed of Memory from 1976, Terry Reid. Now, Terry Reid, not incredibly well known, unfortunately. Started as a singer-songwriter in the late 60s, had a few hits in England. I'm not sure he really charted on this side of the Atlantic. Did a lot of touring over here. Unfortunately, was subject to a terrible contract. He was signed up with the pop producer Mickey Most, and they kind of got into a stalemate where it was like Terry was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to record anything for years, bro." And unfortunately, a lot of momentum was taken from his career. So this album, of course, is from '76. Kind of the origin story behind Terry was great singer. Like I say, a few hits. Jimmy Page actually initially had talked to Terry Reid about potentially becoming the lead singer for who? How about Led Zeppelin? The band that would become the new Yardbirds. He had talked to Terry Reid and was like, "Hey Terry, what do you think? What do you think?" Unfortunately, Terry at the time had a couple of obligations. One being to tour with the Rolling Stones. The other, he actually had finished touring with Cream. So he basically said, "Hey, listen, I'll join the new Yardbirds, but you're going to have to tell Keith Richards, this is why Terry can't join you on the tour." So that didn't happen, obviously. But, great singer, great guitarist. I believe his third album, well, not his third, it would be his fourth. He had two in the late 60s. He had one called River, around 72, 73. Sort of, that one's a little bit more jammy. This one is just all, bona fide classics. Like I say, yeah, this one is an absolute grail as far as I'm concerned. It was not easy to find this one. What happened with this one, of course, produced by Graham Nash. This was all set to go out on ABC Records. What happens? The exact week they release Seed of Memory by Terry Reid, ABC Records goes out of business. They declare bankruptcy. Obviously, ABC Records would continue, probably through bailing themselves out of bankruptcy, etc., etc., but bad timing for Terry. And unfortunately, this album sold butkus. Absolutely no copies. There would be obviously very little to no radio support from really what is sort of a classic, a lot of sort of folk, really great guitar playing all over this. And Terry is just absolutely fantastic. This would be unheard of until actually the early 2000s, when basically Terry would find make friends with a movie producer who then started optioning his songs. Well, three songs from this, obviously Faith to Arise, which starts off the LP in just fantastic form. One of the best songs I've ever heard. Faith to Arise. I'll probably be creating a playlist for this episode, so please check that out. Phenomenal. Faith to Arise, a couple of other songs end up on a film, little Rob Zombie horror film called The Devil's Rejects. And wow, fantastic. So people start to kind of hear him a little bit. I'm not going to say that he got hugely successful, but at least this album was mentioned. And actually that's how I discovered it. Was not through the film, but through just hearing the track and then going to the soundtrack. And then, of course, I began my hunt, and I did actually manage to score a copy of this in Winnipeg, Manitoba. There's Terry on the back. I mean, the man, he likes the feathered hair, and it's 76, so we're gonna do that in 76. It just is what it is. But anyway, this album, I can't really say enough about this album. Problem is with this album is that, yeah, not available on streaming. A lot of Terry's work. You can actually stream River and a couple of those early albums, and you might even be able to stream something after this. but for some reason the licensing on this is bad, so it's just hard to find. But you can get a taste of it track by track, or like me, you gotta buy a hard copy. So again, wow, hugely underrated, in my estimation. An absolute classic album. Bit of a grail for me, like I said. Did pick it up, and wow, my life is better because of this underrated must-have classic, Terry Reid, Seed of Memory from 1976. Like I do, just want to thank everyone for liking and subscribing. Again, it helps a lot. I've noticed some of the videos that don't get as many likes, all of a sudden they just they hit a wall. But we've got some good things going on at the channel here. And again, that's all thanks to you. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing. Appreciate all your comments. There's been great stuff in the comment section. And yeah, if you have any classics from 76 you'd like to rep or big up, as the kids say, please go ahead and do so in the comments. This one, you know what? People might be thinking, you know what? I don't know, Craig Danger. Is there such a thing as an underrated Marvin Gaye album? And I would say yes. That would be probably this one. 1976's I Want You. This would come 3 years after his previous hit album, which of course was Let's Get It On. Bit of a legendary album, that one. This one, at the time, let's just say that Marvin was having problems following up Let's Get It On, which was platinum or double platinum, sort of really confirmed him as a superstar of soul in the 1970s. So it's 76. Berry Gordy is hanging around the studio talking to a gentleman named Leon Ware, as a matter of fact. Leon Ware is a songwriter. He'd had a little bit of action earlier with Michael Jackson and a couple of artists on the Motown label. Leon Ware was actually writing his own album, which he would call Musical Massage. That would come out not too long later after this. But Berry Gordy heard some of the songs that, of course, would end up on this, and was like, so Leon, what about if my man Marvin Gaye gets on these? Boom, absolutely, says Leon, knowing that obviously he's going to write the songs, and then he just basically collaborated with Marvin Gaye, kind of filled out the songs, gets the production credit on this album. It proceeds to sell over 1 million copies, goes top 10, but again, at the time, this was not very highly rated. The critics did not like this album. One thing I can say is that it's 76. This could be way more disco than it actually is, and thankfully it isn't. Again, we're talking about 76, so we are talking about the not exactly slow death, the soul music, which unfortunately would basically be practically non-existent by 78, as pretty much every soul star had kind of embraced disco. This one has kind of elements of Quiet Storm, maybe elements of disco, but it's funky too. And I would not consider this a disco album. This is an album for loving, friends. This is you need to sit back with your lady and get affectionate. Woo! These guys, I want you. It's in the subject matter, baby. It just is what it is. But sensual album on this one, and you can see beautiful picture. This, of course, same artist who did some of the graphic work for Good Times, the 1970s TV show. But anyway, Leon Ware really putting a huge stamp on this album, and like I say, was not actually seen as a triumph for Marvin Gaye at the time. But you know what? Ooh, it's great. You got Come Live With Me, Angel, I Want You. What had happened was, of course, these songs were partially written. Marvin Gaye comes in, and of course, this album would be dedicated to his then 20-year-old lover. That would be Janice Hunter. He basically dedicated this album to her. They did get married and divorced within 3 years, and then she just kind of fell off the map. Apparently, she wrote a book around 2013 or something like that. But anyway, this whole album is dedicated to her, and woo! Marvin apparently was a fan of his, at the time, Lady Janice, because, really great stuff. After the Dance, of course, is another one that kind of became a little bit of a club staple for some time to come. But Marvin Gaye's I Want You from 1976, definitely underrated. But I would also say a must-have. To be fair, almost everything from Marvin I would say up until 80 is must have. Well, at least from 70 to 80. A lot of that 60 stuff, Motown albums are okay. They're fine. But this one certainly stands the test of time. I Want You, another must have, but underrated LP from 1976. Oh, yeah. If it's the Craig Danger channel, you know I'm going to be talking about who? How about the Baker Gurvitz Army? How about Ginger Baker? How about the Gurvitz brothers? Paul and who? Oh, my favorite, Adrian. Adrian the guitar man, the axe man, the fellow who rips. The gentleman, of course, on the back. Of course, this, of course, would be Mr. Snips. The band, of course, picked up a second vocalist, or rather a lead vocalist in Mr. Snips. And you know what? I think it really rounds out the sound. This, of course, is also from 96. Would be the last LP by the Baker Gurvitz Army. And frankly, most people who are fans of the first two albums, of course, they would only do 3 albums plus several live things. They would say, no, not my favorite. I think this is my favorite. This is their most, I guess, straight ahead hard rock, sort of blues rock LP. Starts off with a cooker of a title track on this one. I'm gonna put that in the playlist because that riff might smoke you. Okay, I would recommend, Danger would recommend, if you're wearing something flammable, stay away from Hearts on Fire because smoking, friends, smoking. But you know what? This whole album, I listened to this one today. This whole album is really good. A lot of tasty playing by, again, Adrian Gurvitz, just a monster of a guitarist. Really, I love his playing. He's just so, I believe they call it tasty. Tasty is it. Some flavorful work by Adrian Gurvitz. But you know what? This is full of great tunes. Neon Lights happens to reference San Diego, and I'm like, down San Diego, where I'm like, yep, love it. But there's a bunch of good stuff. Tracks of My Life, actually, I would say, pay particular attention to that one. Very Bob Seger vibes on that one. Something from Stranger in Town, a ballad from Stranger in Town, Tracks of My Life. Really great stuff. And like I say, Mr. Snips, I do like Adrian Gurvitz's vocals, as you may have seen on these videos, but I think Mr. Snips adds like a real rock element. He does have kind of a Seger-esque sort of feeling at times. But yeah, Ginger Baker on drums, as we know, fantastic. And of course, we got Paul Gurvitz playing a little bass here. But Baker Gurvitz Army, their final LP, they unfortunately would record this album. Their manager actually would pass. He would die. Apparently he had some issues with the drugs. And anyway, that just led to a bunch of blow-ups. And unfortunately, the band from there basically disintegrated. So, is what it is, but they left behind a cooker in Hearts on Fire from 1976. An underrated one. I mean, yeah, who has this? Who's like, I'm bigging up Hearts on Fire by the Baker Gurvitz Army? You know who's doing that? How about Craig Danger? Craig Danger's all about the Baker Gurvitz Army in 76 because it's a underrated and must-have classic. Before we let that go, look at some of this great sort of footage. Some fantastic sort of concert shots of very 70s, my friends. Yeah, who are we talking about now? How about Bop Deluxe? Another real sort of classic, super under the radar band, actually. Unfortunately, what's funny about these guys is, you see a lot of bands that they chart in the UK, but they just can't do a thing in the United States. Well, hey. Cool thing about Bop Deluxe is they couldn't even chart in the UK, which is incredible considering just the quality. I mean, look at these. These are some handsome old dudes right there. That's a rockin' looking band. Again, Sunburst Finish is the title of this LP, but wow. This is a cover-to-cover classic. I think one of the guitarists, who of course is at the front, that's Bill Nelson. One of the things you need to know about Bill Nelson is Bill Nelson, in terms of guitar playing, is Prince before Prince came in and was like, I'm just going to start ripping and playing solos exactly like Bill Nelson. Again, it is what it is, but wow. This some of the playing on here is just, it's ripping all over the place. But again, the Prince element is just so incredible. I am surprised that Bill Nelson didn't sue the pants off of Prince and his revolution, because wow, some of that sort of soloing, and there's great solos all over this. If you are a fan of guitars that rip, wow, Sunburst Finish, and really anything by Bop Deluxe, you're gonna really love, because there's just some wicked playing. He's fantastic. He's absolutely fantastic. Again, this didn't really chart. Did not chart in America. One of their best songs, in my opinion, "Ships in the Night," actually did chart. Went to number 23 on the UK singles chart. So again, this was one of those bands that just really kind of never got a good break. And wow, Bill Nelson, just a phenomenal player, great songwriter. He ended up doing a lot of stuff in the 80s with, I think, of a more electronic sort of angle. Again, I have not heard much of that, but all of his stuff by Bop Deluxe is just absolutely fantastic. And like I say, you got to hear it. If you like guitar, rock, and sort of virtuoso players, woo, Bill, you're gonna love yourself some Bill Nelson, and of course Bop Deluxe. This one is, you can get this one in a lot of places. It didn't sell a bunch, but you're not going to spend up on this. I think I spent about $5. I found this in the bin. Not a very well understood band, and again, not very popular. Should be. One of those bands that really just had all the songs, but they just didn't have the promotion. So yeah, Bop Deluxe, Sunburst Finish, 1976, a definite must-have. And you know what? I would call this a classic. So is it underrated? Yes. I mean, nobody has it. Nobody has it. We'll close it out with, how about my man Leroy Hutson, "Feel the Spirit." And you can see there's some spiritual vibes here. That's one man who's turned into 12 men. I believe it's on the strength of that fine chapeau, or hat, as it's also known in English. But if you thought the front is pretty cool, then you're looking at the back and you're like, oh, somebody brought a funky band to play. And of course, that is Leroy Hutson. Leroy, of course, was a short-term member of the Impressions. Was with them between about 72 and 74. On the Curtum label, sort of a protege of Curtis Mayfield. Really, this is, I believe, his fourth album, third or fourth album. The first one he would do in 1976. But you know what? This is a fantastic album. Really funky. No ballads on this, dog. If you're expecting some kind of crazy, soft, quiet, stormy type ballads, no, this is funk. And another thing that's again of worthy to note is that, frankly, this is not very disco either. Which again, the issue, of course, again, as I've mentioned, is once 77 started to roll around, soul music just was not soul music, and even the funk started to drift in favor of kind of those samey disco arrangements. Not this one, and this incredibly powerful group of men. This is a very good record. Only 7 songs on this, dog, but it's the music. Feel the Spirit in 76. Yeah, this is a really fun record and not that expensive. You can get this for under 20. I got mine for probably about $15 on the Curtum label. As you can see, really fantastic stuff. And I would say this, I also have his first LP. Almost anything Leroy Hutson you can pick up and know, quality. He writes and sort of arranges all the material. He plays piano, clavinet. I think he probably plays sax, a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, Leroy Hutson, with a real winner. Feel the Spirit from 1976. That, of course, is what I would call a deeply underrated, and again, all of his albums are underrated. None of them really sold butt kiss, unfortunately, but a fantastic singer-songwriter. And Leroy Hutson, Feel the Spirit in 76. And you know what? Hey, what can I say? I hope all of you have felt the spirit of 76 here with this episode. Like I said, I don't know, maybe we can make it to 78. I'm not even going to promise that, friends, because, it was not easy making this episode. The collection is getting a little slim, a little skinny, now that we're heading into the later 70s. But again, thanks for hanging out, and since you're here, like, subscribe. Either one of those actions merely requires the pressing of a button, and boom, all of a sudden you like and you subscribe. It helps, and it helps a lot, actually. So, yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead, and I'm I'm going to see you on the next one.